Okay, here we are again. Welcome to the COMP3218 Game Design and Development course Let's Play video. This is the second batch we've done for the second group of courseworks in 2016. So once again, we're going to go through each of the games, comment on some of the key things that we see, try and give the designers a bit of feedback, and hopefully give other people an idea of the sort of stuff we're doing here in Southampton. So I'm here with Charlie Hargood and Ricky Prince. I didn't introduce myself, so my name's Dave Millard, and I'm going to hand over to Charlie just to say a little bit about what the students were asked to do this time.
Sure, so the specification for this particular coursework was to create a game adaptation of one of three fairy tales, Little Red Riding Hood, Hansel and Gretel, the Three Billy Goats Gruff. One of the crucial elements was that as well as doing an adaptation of one of these stories, the students included a story engine within the design of their game, so they're able to handle narrative events and properly incorporate the storytelling into the game.
So basically build a narrative game, incorporate it in. Brilliant. Okay,
Cool.
Ricky.
So our first game up is simply called Hansel.
Yeah, I suspect we're going to get a lot of this, right?
Every name.
Will just be Hansel or Red.
That was a film, wasn't it? Red.
Okay.
Oh wow,
Visually gorgeous.
This looks lovely.
that does look fantastic. That lighting's great.
Yeah, lovely bloom effects.
You need to make a trail of breadcrumbs to help you find your way home later. Go to the marker and press space. Is this the marker, or
I assume it is.
is this dude the marker?
Who looked at this at
Try
the
both.
in the expo?
It was me.
Do you
Okay.
remember?
No. There we go. I dropped a breadcrumb.
You
There
have
we go. Breadcrumb.
Drop 1 out of 10 breadcrumbs.
Okay, cool.
Oh, I see. So you've got to drop the breadcrumbs on the markers.
Oh, we've got to follow this guy.
Doesn't
Yeah.
appear to have any feet.
No,
Shuffling
flower
on
pots.
stumps.
Yeah. I did discuss this with him at the time.
You have dropped a crumb.
Where's it gone? Oh, there we go.
So one of the things we were looking for was kind of how the story and the game were kind of knitted together.
Yeah.
And I have to say the visuals are quite nice in that respect. It has a kind of fairy tale aesthetic to it.
Indeed, their aesthetics are very much on point. I'm at the moment I'm starting to wonder how they've necessarily paced this. This is a very slow beginning, and if we remember the ideal pacing graph, you're supposed to engage your players quite significantly right at the start before building up towards a series of microclimaxes. This is quite a slow-paced beginning. However, hang on.
I overheard her plan and used a pebble trail to find my way home. Okay.
Okay, sure.
So we're getting little snippets of dialogue explaining
Yeah.
what's going on.
So one of the obvious things as well to bear in mind between the connection between narrative and mechanics, they've obviously made an important part of the story, which is the laying of breadcrumbs, a key mechanic within the game, and they've used that in order to tell part of the story. They've also one of the key parts of the story is this notion of being lost, and by having to look around and find where this marker is each time as well, they've managed to incorporate that as a mechanic, right? The idea of potentially being lost in the story.
So sometimes it normally jumps to within your field of view. Occasionally it sort of massively disappears.
So I wonder, I mean, it's obviously just the start of the game, so one of the key things was to actually build a story engine in. And I'm wondering what that is. What happens beyond this point, Ricky? Does it kind of...
Oh, okay.
Here we go.
So
we've got a cutscene.
it's a cutscene. Okay.
Or is it?
Is it a cutscene? He's just jogging
No,
on the
it's a
spot.
change of
Level.
area. We're now at night time.
Oh, I see. Okay. So you still got control.
I think we still have the mechanic of dropping breadcrumbs, do we? No, we don't have the breadcrumbs anymore.
So I'm a little bit lost as to what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that looked to me to sort of break flow quite seriously. I sort of feel a little bit lost as to what's necessarily going on. I also don't necessarily see what the point of these...
These are the information spots, so this is where you go and find out what you
Trying
need.
to find out what can. Okay, so in terms
Oh
of
right,
this-
so that's what the woman was before, right? She was leading you out to the forest, and now you're trying to... Now, presumably, you need to find the breadcrumbs you laid in the first place in order to find your way home.
But they're gone.
But it's dark.
So the story engine here is that obviously there's these information points.
Yeah.
There's the dialogue that pops up from the character. I wonder what triggers that dialogue, whether it's a time thing. Or whether
Sure, it's just interaction with the characters, isn't it? This is the thing.
Yeah.
It's quite a simplistic engine, I think. The impression I'm getting from this game at the moment is I'm quite appreciating the aesthetic and stylistic things they do.
Yeah.
I think they've made good use of integrating a
There's the
key
house.
part of the story into the mechanics, and keeping the look and feel very on point. They've got a cutscene, maybe.
Well,
No,
no,
it's
change of
changed
scene again. So we found the house, I think, or we got close enough to the house that we found it.
Hello, little boy, you look hungry. Come to my house and we will feast.
Okay,
Yeah,
but it's
sounds
suddenly
like it's gonna
daytime.
end well.
So
That
that
was
feels
a cutscene. It was a cut between scenes.
Yeah, cut between scenes. So the one thing I would say from the point of view of a storytelling technique is that's quite jarring. And we talked a lot in class about how it's important to maintain flow in order to keep the player immersed, okay, and enjoy the story. Whereas things like what the talking about breaking of immersion.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Wow.
Wow.
I remember this
So
now.
so basically got a sub game.
Yeah,
Yes, a mini-game.
That's
This is the oven game.
yeah. Okay.
Get the white gem to the bottom.
Oh yeah, that's what I've got.
But it doesn't tell you. Oh, quick to swap adjacent gems. Oh, I see. Right, gotcha.
Ah, okay.
That's just a little game of visuals. Okay.
Wow. I kind of wasn't expecting mini games.
So
Charlie's
it's-
not convinced.
it's kind of cool, but I don't think this is lending anything to the storytelling.
story,
I don't
right.
think this matches the story. I think it's jarring to suddenly do it. Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's taking you out of the world. Hansel and Gretel.
So where I am with this is I
I guess there's the sudden panic. That's the one thing I'm getting from this is the use of basically breaking continuity in order to express the sudden panic of being thrown into another. Okay. But,
I think that's a generous
that's stretching.
interpretation. But, I mean, so what I'm getting from this game in general is I think it technically it's quite sophisticated. You know, they've got scene changes, the graphics they've got going on is really good. I mean, even the fire effects at the back of this.
Yeah, and
particular piece
this is a nice.
the whole
climax.
puzzle game. I mean, you know, they could have submitted that puzzle game as the entire game in the first coursework.
Yeah.
So I think they've
Nice.
obviously achieved a lot, and they've got a progression through the story. But I think you're right. I think kind of perhaps they haven't perhaps considered pacing as much as they should have done.
Indeed. I mean, there's a couple of sort of like nods to it. I mean, that little conclusion there. I assume this is the conclusion of the game, Ricky?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
So
that's the big dramatic-
by having a big cut like that, you do sort of raise the
Yes.
drama and the panic a little bit. But I don't think it's been more carefully considered. Also, thinking about things like the sort of act structure of the story, there's
Yeah.
not really a clear beginning, middle, and end
do you
there.
think
It's
that was
the
the
end.
three, the
Oh,
the
well,
scene,
yeah,
the cut of the
right.
scenes.
Yeah, you're
so
right.
rather-
Actually, no, okay, I take that
Do you-
back.
Yeah,
do
that's
you-
sort of
draw
what
that,
they did.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think
Do
it
you-
wasn't
Yeah.
clear that was happening. Like it was very
Yeah.
suddenly it was light, suddenly it was dark, and if there'd been a fade out and a fade back in again, maybe with a like
do you
4
think
hours
the
later.
problem here is that they've tried to do too much?
Possibly.
That they've kind of got multiple modes, they've got all sorts of stuff going on,
Yeah.
and they're actually trying to do a kind of a story within this key landscape. Would
Yeah,
probably be
sure. So,
insufficient.
I mean, my overall impression of this is good use of the mechanics in order to help tell the story. The aesthetics and the design are very much on point. Okay,
Yeah, I agree.
pacing's a bit questionable, but they have made some sort of hat tip towards that.
Yeah.
I think the changing of modes for the game is that
Yeah.
they haven't done a lot to maintain cohesion in it. They haven't tackled the problem of agency really because it's a very linear story.
So I was going to say,
and
we haven't
consequently,
talked
I think
about
that is sort of underpinned by the fact that I think they have an extremely simplistic story.
So for example, do you think you're making any kind of meaningful narrative choices here?
This is the thing. I'm not sure you are.
Yeah.
I think you're following this right. But yeah, I
So,
think.
so what makes you think the story engine simplistic? Like what?
Because
What would you expect different? That would
so
make
the thing
it
is, the
deeper?
story engine will be able to sort of model the notion of what's actually going on in the story and sort of take effect of it. But I don't see anything like they said it's about meaningful storytelling, and I don't think that's actually necessarily represented in the game in any way. Nothing persists. Okay, there is no choice. Okay,
Yeah.
and
So is choice a key factor in
well,
this?
not necessarily. This thing you can have a linear story, okay, but it knows very, very carefully about what has necessarily occurred within the story
Yeah,
up to that point.
I
and
would-
I don't think that's necessarily.
I would make a distinction between. I think think you should have choice, but choice doesn't necessarily mean you'll get divergent stories.
Okay.
So yeah, you can still have a linear story with choices in it about the way in which you experience that linear story and some of the kind of the things that come up within it.
I mean, it's not absent of a story engine, right? There is a notion of an interaction and story being fed back to you. Yeah. But for a game where a key part of the specification was implement a story engine, I think it's quite light. However, I don't want to be too critical. Okay, the polish in this game is gorgeous. Okay, and it's a lovely overall experience, and they've worked very hard, obviously, in order to achieve that. Okay,
I think so. Yeah.
I think we should move on.
Yeah, well done.
Excellent. I agree.
Excellent.
So next up, we have Hoodsan.
Okay,
right.
So who reviewed this one? The expert.
That was me. I saw
you
this
again.
as well.
Okay, fine.
See why we're called Hoodsan?
Yes, okay.
Nice. Even though Little Red Riding Hood... she's gone.
We missed it.
While she is sleeping, the wolf takes the items she has for Grandma and scatters them all around the wood to buy himself.
More time to get to Grandma's, fine.
When she wakes up, all the items she had of Grandma are gone, so you must collect them all before you can go to Grandma's, or her mother will find out what happened.
Okay.
So,
right.
So,
good.
So
okay.
it sets a nice little premise.
Nice little setting.
Yeah.
Also, I should note there what they've done is they've used a little bit of in media res here. Okay, in that you started right in the middle of the action. Okay, and they've covered the first act essentially in that little sort of summary there, which is a bit of a clumsy way to go about it, just with a massive text dumper going, okay, this is what happened before. But given the constraints of the game, I think that's sort of acceptable. They've at least made a note of it. You got the flowers. Okay.
So it's essentially a collection type thing.
Yeah. Just to point out, I could look around during the text cutscene, but I couldn't move forward.
Right.
Sure. So it was restricting.
So again, we mentioned the graphics the last one, and again they've done a really nice job.
Yeah, game polish is
really
is getting
professional.
Big fat thumbs up. Yeah.
Just going to follow the path. But I remember one of these being quite well hidden. Is that one in the distance over there? No, that's just sunlight through the screen.
So again, I'm wondering kind of what the story engine. It's got a number of things it can work with, including the stuff you've collected.
Items, indeed. So you've got the wine now. So it's these items.
So
at the moment, though, I would consider this a game engine rather than a story engine, right? It's recording the mechanical collection of items.
What would make it interesting? So maybe characters to talk to that
characters
reacted
to talk
depending
to.
on what you'd already collected. Like,
Or
or
even
you've got
just
the flowers and the wine,
or even just a bit of
really
text,
need the cake,
or even just a bit of text from the player responding when they've picked up items in a contextual way, knowing what they've picked up beforehand.
Okay.
So, for example, we have a problem here in that actually finding these things is quite tricky. Okay, if you could offer contextual guidance, knowing what the player still has to collect
kind of
in
hints
order,
or something,
or offer something, and then you could use the point of those. You could use those hints in order to tell more story as well. It's the thing, right? You could leverage that in order to
so perhaps rather than having that big dump at the beginning, you could have had something about just needing to collect things, and then as you pick them up, you've got more of a little bit more.
That would be, in fact, the classic implementation of being able to use sort of in media res and then referring back to the first act over the course of the game. But again, I don't want to be too critical. I think they've done well in order to basically get that initial bit of pacing bump, and now we've got a lull because you're looking for things, okay? And it is a short game because these are only little prototypes. But what I'll be looking for from the terms of pacing is whether that pacing rises once we've completed this challenge.
So that's the last one. So they've also I think the story engine is presumably keeping track of things. So now you've got those, you can go to the house.
Yes.
And it's also, I'm guessing, a way of controlling the player agency, because you've got an open world here, but there are gates on progression basically. So that's a kind of classic way of managing the agency of the player.
Okay.
She was surprised to find the cottage door standing open,
and the cottage full of grass.
As I said, the cottage without a floor.
Oh, grandmother, what big ears you have!
Can you go in?
This is a cutscene, isn't it? This is what it was.
I can't move. Yeah, the text is a cutscene. Oh, there it is. Grandmother, big eyes you have, she said. All the better to see you with, my dear. But grandmother, what large hands you have. The better to hug you with. Oh, but grandmother, what a terrible big mouth you have.
No.
Is mouth the last one?
I think so.
Better to eat you with. Run away! Oh.
Pardon?
What?
Even though Little Red Riding Hood is supposed to hurry to Grandma's, she is so tired. She's tired, and while she's...
Oh, that's the end of the game. It's restarted the game, isn't it?
Oh, we reset.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Was
Okay.
original.
Got you. Okay.
So that's a bit that feels a little bit disappointing to me, right? They had an opportunity to really like make something of the climax of the story in the game.
I was expecting
and they
a
sort of
chase
took
or
the game
something.
away. Exactly, yeah. Something to raise the drama in the game as well as in the narrative. Whereas what they've done is they basically bookended it with a cutscene.
Yeah.
They have used the cutscene. The cutscene wasn't too jarring in terms of context, okay?
Yeah.
But they have just sort of bookended it with it, and then not really done anything within the game.
I think there are things they could have done really simply. So even if they turn it into a chase where the wolf is pursuing you, they can use exactly the same environment, they can use exactly the same control system, but you just have to get out of the space or get to a certain point.
Yes.
Maybe they could have linked it with the beginning where you can kind of use the things that you've collected to distract the wolf or something.
Yes, absolutely.
But just something to tie it together again.
So this is the thing. I think my impressions of this game is that they've got a story engine, but again, it's quite a simplistic story engine.
It really
okay,
is, isn't it?
That story engine could have been used to leverage more storytelling rather than just the game mechanics. Okay, and indeed, that storytelling might have overcome one of the mechanical problems, which is getting lost and finding things. I think they made good use of in media res, okay, in order to get the pacing right at the beginning, and then that pacing sort of trailed off as it should do. However, they didn't really deliver in the end. The pacing didn't ramp up. You had a slightly dramatic scene in the cottage, but it was done entirely with cutscene and not with gameplay. And it sort of belies the whole tell, show, do.
I also think the agency thing. I mean, that they've obviously got that choke point where you need to collect the things before it, and that allows you to explore, but manages the progression of the story. But again, at the end, they kind of missed a chance there to actually have some further agency. In that, presumably, part of that beginning part would be to potentially scout out ways to escape.
Yes.
You could have had a meaningful choice about which way you went.
Yes.
Some might have been harder or easier than others. I think they've got I agree. I think what they have here is a really good foundation to do something, but actually what they've done is really kind of doesn't necessarily demonstrate the full potential.
Yeah. No, I think I agree. Okay, shall we move on then?
Okay.
Yeah, good stuff.
Okay, next up we have Bomb Wolf.
I love the title of this one.
Was this one of yours, Dave?
It was,
At the Expo? Okay.
So it's kind of like a platformer. I'm trying to remember the controls. Yeah, go on. If you explore, you'll get there. So you collect things up. They've done that classic thing where they start you on one side, so they pull you to the other. So you'll notice there's a control there to respond, so you can give cake. You don't have to. You can ignore. So basically, you encounter the character. It's up to you what you do.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
And there are consequences.
Okay.
Do you reckon this needs wine? I'm not going to give. I think it's.
Give a deer
I think
wine.
it's irresponsible to give a deer wine.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens when you don't
So-
give a deer wine.
So here's the wolf.
Deer.
Yeah.
Keep walking.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Hello.
So this is quite nice.
This
So
is nice. Yeah, it's an
the wolf
interactive
walks
bit of
with you.
conversation. Yeah. It's lovely. Yeah.
Oh, you can't go back and read it. Okay.
So again, a way of controlling agency. Even though you kind of go left and right here, they're basically saying the story will only progress if you go to the right.
Yeah, that's right. Do you go if you go left? Does the walk with you, or does it stop?
No.
No, that's brilliant. That's fantastic. Okay, right, because it's making you walk right. The wolf will wait for you. Right, it's not a case of I will follow you wherever you're going. Okay, it's like we're going over there. Come with me. Okay.
My only concern is that you move right quite quickly, and that the text auto skips along, so you have to like walk a bit.
That's a bit of a tweaking and implementation, right? They could have paced it a little bit.
So keep going because there's a fair bit. There's a fair bit to see on this one, I think.
Yeah.
So, where does your grandmother live?
Yeah.
A nice conversation.
Oh, he stopped. There we go.
Right, here we go.
Ooh.
So now
flowers. Yeah.
Now you're into.
You sort of moved into the foreground, I think, and the background rather.
Yeah.
And you're trying to get some flowers and doing a little bit of precision platforming while you're at it.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Okay, so now you've got to pick the
There's
flowers.
There's a timer. Ooh.
So again, they're using the kind of the story to kind of give you objectives through the different levels, which is quite nice.
Yes, absolutely.
And they have remembered some of the decisions you made early on.
Yeah, indeed.
This will come back at the end.
This is the game implementation itself is quite simplistic, right? It's quite a simple platformer. But what they've actually done is they have actually implemented a working story engine in this game.
Yeah.
And they've made some potentially. I mean, I have to see how it pans out, but potentially some interesting uses of things like agency. That's your marker, mate. It's not an actual flower to cut to the far right. So.
Oh yes. Yeah. Okay. So we've got.
Okay. Right. Good.
Go.
Do we need a certain
It
number?
would probably help us with these Let's Play videos if we were actually a bit better at playing the games and they're sharp as
Okay.
Here we go.
Right.
Right. Here we go. This looks like the path to grandmother's.
Exit. Good. Right.
So now you're in effectively the third level.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
the house. Now it does get a bit weird here, but bear with it.
I like the
So-
little walking up the steps. That's quite neat.
So next, little red cap. There we go. So I'm coming in.
Was that it? Yeah, that's it.
So I think,
Okay.
I think that's because you chose to go in, right?
Ah.
So
There it is.
basically, we probably haven't got time to run through it with other choices. So if you choose to go in, I think you get eaten. If you don't choose to go in, then the wolf comes out, and you effectively then have a kind of a fight with the wolf.
Okay.
And depending on the characters you've helped along the way, they turn up or not to help you at the end.
Yeah.
Um,
But only if you don't choose to go in.
Let's
so-
do that.
so-
I'm gonna play through again.
So I think there are some nice things about this. They clearly have a kind of a progression. They're using the story to introduce the levels. They've
Yeah,
got
that's
different
right.
objectives on the levels.
They've got an obvious
It
story
is-
model that is actually making.
Yeah, I mean,
these things.
you know, and they've got these characters you encounter. They're remembering what you're doing, and that has consequences later.
Mhm.
So they've done these nice little bits like, you know, controlling agency, giving you a little bit
Indeed.
of story as you go.
But also as well, they're
That's
making the
lovely.
dialogue isn't entirely passive. You don't sit there and just read. You're still doing something. I mean, I know it's only just moving right, but you'd be surprised just
yeah.
how much the difference that
Yes, yeah.
makes. So
So you've got all these kind of bits.
Oh, no,
you got there
I'm
before
gonna
Wolf this time because you didn't get
go. Didn't
fouls.
get the nosegay. Yeah.
There you go. Take these bombs.
Bob.
Get up to the roof and throw them at them. I'm too weak to do it. Right, so get up on the roof.
Oh,
Right,
brilliant.
You have to throw the bombs at the wolf.
How?
I don't know. Try buttons. There we go. Oh, left mouse. Left mouse, it said.
Drag the bombs.
Left mouse button.
Oh, I left mouse button.
No, not working.
No. Oh, there we go.
It's a slingshot. There we go.
I was trying that. Oh,
There you
wow.
go. So they've got a cute
You
little
got another-
mechanic.
you
You
got
can
another
get another one.
Yeah.
Try and hit the.
Oh. Can I just drop it on him?
Did you help those characters? I don't think you can. I think you have to.
Yeah, you can.
Oh, you can.
Right,
Okay.
that makes it somewhat arbitrary.
Oh, you are. So here's the hunter coming to help you. Right.
Okay.
Press S on your keyboard and I will slow them down.
Okay.
So you can press S to slow the wolf down.
I can't pick up a.
Bomb.
Double
Here,
Well,
I've
Feels
got
a bit
multiple
buggy,
wolves
doesn't it?
coming.
Oh, there's loads of them.
And you've
Ah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
I think
Slightly rough
That was
implementation at the end there,
So-
but that's fine.
I
But they
think
had different endings.
Yeah, yeah.
Significant, like
I mean,
gameplay different.
yeah,
endings.
I mean,
No,
they've got different
I'm
endings.
really impressed with the story engine used there. That's what I mean by an effective story engine with
Yeah.
one of these
Yeah.
games. Okay, they've clearly modelled different aspects of what's going on in the game.
Yeah.
Those aspects just aren't arbitrary. Okay, they have a genuine impact on the agency of the game. Okay,
Yeah.
and they've modelled that within it.
Yeah.
I also think that they've made a little bit of an approach also towards the sort of technique they're using by keeping the dialogue interactive. Okay,
Yes.
that's made sure that that's less jarring, sort of taking it away. They've also made a good use of sort of 3-act structure in the sense that you have this sort of beginning part, and then you have where the dramatic question is posed. Okay,
Yeah.
then you have the part which is the acquisition of means, which is literally getting the cake, helping the people who are going to help you at the end
Yes,
to help you
yeah.
to answer the dramatic question, and then a conclusion. So they made use of that.
And they've kind of
The
got the
one thing-
pacing
What
in
was the
there as well.
introduction? What was Act 1 there?
So the Act 1 was the bit where it sort of tells you you're going to grandma's house.
Okay.
You've got
Yeah,
the
yeah.
characters.
It's quite short.
And it
Sure.
builds
And
up.
then you're acquiring the means
Yeah.
in the middle, right? You're picking up items, you're helping friends, okay, you're doing these sort of things.
And it builds
then
up because in
it
Act
goes
2
there.
you're then collecting the bits, and
Yeah,
Act 3
it
you
is.
got.
So,
So it's definitely got the pacing in there.
I do have a bit of a beef with the lack of pacing. Okay,
Yeah.
it doesn't really feel like there's any pacing in it. It's sort of like
Well, it does
starts
build
at one. It does build up, but the beginning is quite slow. There's not really an injection of energy at the start.
It lacks the kind of local maxima, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The
I like
local
the.
people.
I thought it was dramatic to see the wolf. I don't know if you, because you knew
Yeah,
it was coming.
it
But
built-
like,
No, indeed,
I
indeed.
thought that was an enemy.
But the
to begin with,
opener,
like, 'cause
it lacked that initial bump of drama at the beginning.
Oh,
of
the
the
very
graphic
beginning.
curve. Yeah.
So I think the other criticisms, obviously, I think in terms of the game itself, I think mechanically and the way the controls work, it's not quite as refined as it should be.
Sure.
But I agree. I think the narrative's quite well woven in.
Yeah,
So the other thing is we did talk about kind of trying to make the actual story have some resonance with the mechanics, and certainly the tasks you're doing are kind of linked in. But
Yeah.
they could have done a bit more, I think, maybe with that.
Indeed. I'm also not entirely sure that a slingshot full of bombs is a mechanic that resonates with the
Exactly.
But it does with the name, Charlie.
Yes,
Yeah.
I guess.
They wouldn't have been able to call it Bomb Wolf.
That's true.
Yeah, no, I was quite impressed by that.
But yeah, fun little game.
Cool. Right,
Wrap up
let's
there?
move on. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, so we've had to open this in Unity because we couldn't get the executable to run. So we'll have to figure out exactly
Here we go. Right.
how
So
it works.
this is one of the ones that I had a look at the expo. It's a little Red Riding Hood. Crack right on, Ricky, if you want to get playing, because this is quite a long one again. So if we're going to get the most of it as possible in a Let's Play. So obviously you've got the items and things there. So the idea is first that you need to go around your house and pick up the items to take to Grandma's house. And
Can't leave without my hamper, so don't get the hamper. Is that
Yeah.
the thing in the bottom right?
Indeed.
There we go.
So you may have noticed there's some spoken voice acting in this as well.
I always admire a bit of voice acting. I love the voice acting in the few ones we saw. It's great.
So this is, in a way, this is sort of classic sort of story-led
hamper
2D
bottom
RPG.
right?
Yeah, the hamper's in the bottom right there.
So QE. Mustn't forget Grandpa's presents, delicious cake and lovely wine.
Yeah, you have to get the cake and stuff and load it into the hamper first. So go and get the wine off the cabinet or off the counter.
Do you have to pick it up first, or?
No, I think you go and.
You have to pick everything else up.
So it is quite contextual, right? It tells you if you try to interact with something,
Yeah.
why it's not letting you interact with it. Okay.
Swine.
Yeah.
Swing.
So what was the other thing? The
Cake, which you've already picked
We've
up.
already got the cake.
Okay.
But I can chuck it on the floor if you want. There you go, there's a cake.
So they've got a full item system.
Try not to eat this, which may have been what I said the first 4 times. Ooh,
Okay,
all
so
information there.
So some quite
First 4
cute
times.
little dialogue that.
There you go. Now you've loaded it into the hamper, and you're good to go. So
Okay.
yeah,
Lots
So
of things
presumably we
to interact
can
with.
That
leave.
you
through
you can look at it, everything in this game is interactive and has descriptions. We won't have time. Go on with
but still, it's quite nice because what it means is you've got an open environment, you've got little bits of description
Indeed,
and
little bits of
dialogue
description.
associated with
And
certain
also,
actions that you don't
to some
necessarily
extent,
see.
less so at this stage in the game, but later in the game, those things definitely actually tell you some of the story and some of the
Great.
environment that's going on.
Yeah,
So,
There was a hint towards it there as well.
Yeah.
so what's that? Grandma's.
Design.
Grandma's is left. Nowhere is
Up.
up.
Oh, but
So
there isn't
what's
there?
that flashing thing over there then?
Oh, well, let's go over there.
Log number 1. Is this thing on?
Okay, so this is the
Right,
audio
speaking so, I'll assume
recordings sort of tapes thing
This
that
is
you
going
see
to be
in
my
so
attempt
many
to talk to somebody
games.
intelligent about my role here.
Great.
Of
Do we like
course,
it or not like
And they
it?
put a
So-
written
Absolutely, no. I think it's a good use, right? Because it's again, it's a good use of in media res, starting in the action, and being able to like see what's going on at the beginning. By the way, if you sit and listen to all of these transcriptions without playing, we will be here for 30
I
minutes.
know.
Okay.
I had a quick go at this game in the expo as well.
Yeah, so-
Great.
John
Okay.
on because
Shall,
there's things we want to talk about.
So
How do I close a transcript?
there we go. So if we go off to the left, let's go to Grandma's.
Sure.
I like the little scene change as well. That's quite
Indeed,
cute.
little scene change, and then you got the wolf and the
And
old,
one more
bed.
little audio tape down the bottom.
Yeah, and then they
I
have
kind of-
a conversation. So interestingly, note there they've triggered a cutscene story event because you've entered the house and
Yes,
things are ready to go. Okay.
Wolf, all the better to eat you.
Okay, just
All right, the wolf legged it.
this is okay. We're trying something a little more retro in Sector 7B. I didn't realise how brutal some versions of this were. Stones. It's barbaric. But
So Is there like some kind of meta-narrative going on
Yes,
then with the
absolutely.
cassettes?
This is it. It's what they've done is they've used Red Riding Hood as a basis,
Yeah.
but then they've actually decided to tell a meta-narrative that is about this character that's recorded the audios and transcriptions, and in a way the protagonist is actually just a sort of an empty shell for the character in order to progress
Yeah.
through these. So now this scene has changed because the story engine has progressed and it's
Yeah.
revealed the route to the top there.
Yeah, okay, so again, managing agency by blocking off that route.
Indeed, precisely, and making good use of it.
Yeah.
And then we've got sort of these bits of glass and metal planks and things like that around, which is
puzzle
making
game,
use of
isn't
it. Yeah, and so the character, so they're using sort of genuine sort of pacing of the story here, right?
Yeah.
So you had that initial sort of bumper drama there where the wolf just sort of suddenly run off, but now it's sort of slowing down a bit, but you're sort of exploring some of the things that are coming together in the mystery here.
Pretty
So
short trees,
the
aren't
only
they?
And
thing
it's slowly revealing bits and pieces.
So the only thing I would say is it is almost purely a narrative game, isn't it?
Yes.
Because there's not an awful lot of other mechanics.
Well, the
that's going on
mechanics
here.
are so that they become a little bit more apparent later on,
Okay.
but they're not much. The lights,
there's
the
collection,
the collection, little
yeah.
puzzles as well to solve later
Right.
on, and
Okay.
riddles and things like that. Okay,
In fact, there's a puzzle coming up.
indeed. So there's a puzzle in here. So
Point-and-click games growing up, and therefore I have to put up with some irritating interruptions every time I want a cup of tea.
Ah, I remember. Anyone solve that puzzle? What do we have to do?
I know the answer.
No,
'cause
so do I as well.
Man
Okay.
pushing envelope to B.
Yes, that is
Right,
correct.
So think. How do you solve this puzzle, David?
What have you picked up that's relevant?
Think of the notion that it is a meta narrative, and that this
Yes.
may be a meta puzzle. Okay, well, we don't have all
It's
time.
like- we
Push
know-
the answer is push the letter B.
B.
So you just press letter
push
B on
the
the
letter
keyboard
now?
and it solves it. Yeah, opens the door.
I obviously don't do enough cryptic
Crosswords.
crosswords. Yeah.
That confused me when I saw it the first time as well.
Yeah.
It's like, what is this trying to say
So there's
to me?
another puzzle in here as well.
Okay.
And they're still
Alright,
getting these
so-
tapes, they're doing these. Also,
so
Ricky,
now
one
we've
of
got
the
the
things you may
puzzle
want to do is if you look at the windows, there's like things going on through there as well.
Oh, really?
After we
Yeah.
had
What do you mean?
widespread acceptance, The Little Mermaid was our big budget production.
Is that the wolf who ran past me earlier? I'll go am I safe?
Yes.
So in a
Interesting, I
sense,
hadn't-
we've
I hadn't
So
seen
the
that.
meta narrative here is that this is essentially some sort of theme park or institution where
Yeah,
actors are
yes.
continuously acting out
It's quite-
various fairy tales.
it reminds me
And
of
it's the,
Cabin in the Woods. You know, it's that kind of
Indeed,
that
well,
kind of
it's
thing,
the
you know.
Truman Show expert right of escaping
Yeah.
the box, right?
Yeah.
But let's talk a little bit about what we're actually assessing and the fact that this is a piece of coursework. So there is
Yeah.
a story engine here, clearly.
No, there's
okay?
clearly a story engine.
Clearly a story engine, and I think also the story engine has been used to some elegance. Right? It's been used to control
think so.
agency. It's been in order to record what the character has
Yeah.
done and the player is doing as it's progressing.
And also, I like the fact that the story, and I don't know whether the story is linear, but actually your
There is
interaction isn't necessarily linear.
No,
you get
indeed.
different parts of the
The
story.
game is branching,
Yeah.
but mostly towards the end, the branching,
Okay.
so that you don't experience a lot of the
But
branching at this
that's
stage.
fine. Again, that's a
but it
classic
branches
way
a little bit towards the
classic
end.
way of managing agency.
It's also worth noting that they, as I said, they made good use of media res, but they haven't forgotten about the first act, and they're using those audio transcriptions in order to give context to the story and reveal things. And by doing that as well, they're also enhancing their own sort of genre by working with the mystery and the fact that the mystery becomes slowly apparent as the game progresses. Character-wise, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here because I know Ricky hasn't got to this little bit in the game yet. But they've although the protagonist is obviously Red Riding Hood here, that is quite an empty vessel for the player. The actual character is the person you're hearing talking. Okay?
Yes,
The person
yeah.
who owns this this
It's a
institution.
really
okay?
interesting choice.
And what they've done is they've created a sort of narratological antagonist. Who is the villain in a sense, okay? Who's keeping
Yeah.
these people trapped and allowing potentially these horrible things in order to participate.
Yeah.
But in order to, in his view, give meaning to the lives of the
Yeah.
actors that are trapped within the institution. They're trapped. What's going on here? So
So in
Yeah.
terms of actually weaving the story and the mechanics and having a kind of more coherent narrative game, it's kind of
so this is where you go through the.
it's kind of interesting, right? Because
Yeah.
because actually the story, as you said, isn't the story of Little Red Riding Hood really.
Mhm.
It's a story about the
Well, I think
about
it's a
the-
story about
the-
the telling of stories.
Exactly,
okay,
yeah.
this is the thing.
It's the cultural inheritance of Little Red Riding Hood.
But this is it.
But each section
Obviously, as well, although the art style is quite simplistic, the polish in this
Yeah.
game is excellent. Okay, good use of voice acting, good use of implementation.
So-
it's not buggy. Okay, apart from the fact that
And
the execution.
so one of the things I really
like.
like. So here we've entered a house that's very like Grandma's house, but
Yeah.
slightly different. So
Indeed.
actually, that idea of the telling of stories, and that every time you tell a story, it's slightly different, and
Yeah.
they have actually incorporated that into the game quite nicely.
Indeed, well, I thought that was interesting just coming through and seeing another Little Red Riding Hood, right?
Yes,
Okay,
exactly.
that's what
That's like
Yeah.
the big reveal, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like you sort of been getting.
So
the-
I think I really appreciate the fact
So the
they tried-
drama is being paced there. The pacing's
Yes.
nice, right? You got a little bit of drama to begin with, then it slows down while you're figuring things out. Then the puzzles again sort of creep it forward, but
Yes.
not really. And you have little micro climaxes when you look through the windows and see various other things going on. There's extra bits of the thing revealed, and you have a big reveal here that allows you to understand it. So this is where you use the key in order to go through the bookcase. So you're nearly at the end now.
showing you that
Is this
the
the right way
worlds
to
are
go?
linked together.
That's right.
Imagine I'm all that's left.
I've been up there before. Haven't I?
Yeah,
This
so
is
now,
a
but now you've got the
wrong
key.
way.
But you've got the key to open that
Oh,
door on the
no,
left.
I forgot there was.
So I really appreciate the sophistication of
Did
what they've done.
No,
Oh, you didn't get the card off the bed. Go back. So
Okay.
Grandma is replaced with a key.
Oh, is that what that was?
Yeah, that's a key. That's a key card from Doom.
Yeah.
It's a little bit.
There we
Oh,
go.
I
Saffron.
need it.
I'm
Sounds
getting an
like
odd sense of doom. Yes.
Did you pick it up?
I-
Oh, you
no.
your inventory. Yeah.
So again, I think kind of the
Is it
actual
not letting you pick
game,
it up?
the mechanics of the game seem to be a little bit clunky, but the interaction with the story is really nice.
Yeah.
The story engine seems very sophisticated, and they've
Indeed.
clearly thought about how
So
to
you've got some
control
problem to pick up that key
the
there.
player and what they're doing.
It
Yeah.
might just be a bug.
It worked when I saw it in the expo, but
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you what's causing that now. Okay, well, I think given time constraints, we probably need to move on there. But as I said, I think we're happy
good.
there with the good use of the thing. So from the point of view of, I guess, from the point of view of a critique, okay, I'm not entirely sure whether using the protagonist as an empty shell is a good thing or a bad thing, right? It means that you have to be able to identify with essentially this actress that's playing Red Riding Hood without necessarily anything to help you do that. Okay, there is a reason we have classical protagonists in video games, because it helps you with it wrong. But by the same sense,
but it's
by
enough
doing
to-
that, they've allowed the player to essentially
And
just
it's
sort of
enough
map
to
themselves
engage
onto
you.
that
It's the
thing.
classic
Yeah.
thing about it's a mystery. You're trying to figure out what on earth's going on.
Mhm.
Kind of,
Yeah.
that's what draws you through the story.
Yes.
So I think they've tried to do something really quite sophisticated, and to a large extent they've pulled it off. So
Absolutely.
it's a good
Very
job, I think.
impressive.
Okay, fantastic. Let's move on, I think.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, this next game is called Little Red Cap.
Okay.
Okay.
Cute.
So who did this one at the
One
expo?
day her grandma fell ill. She was asked by her mum to take some wine and cake. So she set off to grandma's house through the dark, dangerous forest. Okay, there's our premise.
This might have been
Lovely.
the button.
Taking the place of a little cutscene. Okay.
It's the forest. Okay, here's maze.
Retry. So
Oh, I see. Right, so it's like a...
okay. So you keep on walking, and you've got to press the buttons to
Yeah.
get
a bit
around the
Pac-Man-y.
maze.
Yeah, but you can't hit a wall. So it's like a... It's almost a...
Okay.
it's an unsolvable maze.
It is.
Yeah,
Find the
trick.
path to Grand. So unless you go around the outside.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alright, okay, yeah, that's the thing. Maybe the maze is just it's a trick. The
It
house is there,
is.
mate. Yeah.
No, I'm just. I
Find
was just
the
seeing what
road.
if I went in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting. Okay.
So...
Okay. So that's where you meet the wolf.
okay,
Go and
cutscene.
pick some flowers for poor sick grandma. Okay.
Gotta say, and this was something we should have said in more detail last time, having mixed interfaces, so like sometimes clicking stuff with the mouse
Yeah,
and sometimes
yeah.
clicking with the keyboard is
Yeah.
a bit of a
It's
bit
jarring, right?
Yeah. Okay. Pick up 10 red flowers.
Pick on the red flowers.
Pick up 8.
Oh, this isn't a mechanic.
Oh,
It is.
no,
It is because
no.
it changes to blue, so if you
It's
click too
blue.
quickly,
Wow.
then you
Okay.
lose.
So again, it's kind of like a mini game, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not a great mini game, but it is a mini game.
Mini game nonetheless.
Yeah. So she ran as fast as she could, trying to find Grandma's house. Okay. So these are effectively like in place of cutscenes, aren't they?
Yeah.
Click on the house, find the real house.
Okay, so it's like a party game almost, right?
Yeah, that's right. It really is a sequence of mini games connected by textual cutscenes.
How do you know which one's the real house?
Because
So is it,
I've seen it played before.
or is it just random?
But you just clicked the wrong one 3 times.
Yeah, I know. Because you have to click on the word house.
You've got to click on the word house.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Trickery, Charlie.
Well, not trickery. I don't. That feels cheating to me. That's
It
not
does, yeah.
obvious,
It's-
right?
it's
It's all well and
unfair
good to
to
have a
the
meta puzzle.
So I
for
think
those
so,
are houses as well, right? It doesn't say click on the word house. It says click on the house.
So I
house.
think
Yeah.
I think there's some general stuff about game design, right?
Yeah.
And there's the stuff that was the subject of this particular coursework.
Yeah.
And the general thing about game design is about, you shouldn't be tricking the player. You should be giving them, again, it's meaningful choices.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
You should be giving them clues about what you're doing.
Absolutely.
So I think it's falling down on a number of those things,
But
and also it's too simple. The previous
Yeah.
mini game was too simple. In
Yeah.
terms of the narrative engine here, again, what we have here is effectively a sequence of mini games with cutscenes.
yes.
So they are using cutscenes to kind of explain to you what's happening to link the minigame experience together.
Yeah.
But again, it's not really the mini games themselves don't seem to be particularly meaningful.
They
to
don't
the
seem
story.
meaningful to the plot, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I
and-
guess Little Red Riding did click on flowers in the sense, and that she collected flowers, but I don't think that's a.
They've taken the theme definitely,
yeah.
but they haven't kind of incorporated any of the kind
So
of.
they say
elements
one of the
story.
good reasons that you have cutscenes is in order to contextualize. Okay,
Yeah.
it's a way of increasing the information density of your game. However, they've chosen their cutscenes to use a lot of text, which, as we know, is a low information density way of doing
Yeah.
things. I actually think the most effective thing about those cutscenes is the pretty picture of Little Red Riding Hood in them, because
Yeah.
it helps to add to the sort of almost sort of
So-
childlike whimsy of the story. Okay, rather than the text is actually.
So I agree with that. So the one counter to that I would say is that
yeah.
these guys haven't got enough time to build kind of cut. I mean, some of them actually have built cutscenes,
Yeah.
but
Sure.
it's very difficult for them to build cutscenes. So I think actually, kind of
Sure.
as a proxy for what might be a more animated cutscene, I think having some
No,
text
indeed,
on
and
the
I
screen is
would not
fine.
expect a full FMV mega video.
Yeah.
However, what I might have said is a series of 3 images showing the thing that
Would
you're
have been
necessarily
better,
trying to communicate might be more effective than just one picture with a block
So
of
almost
text
almost
next
go
to
for a
it.
kind of graphic novel cartoon
Yeah,
type
precisely.
aesthetic. Yeah.
So also, regards to the story engine, because I really do think that's
Have
the
we
heart
finished,
of this
by the way?
coursework. Yeah, I sort of want to see if there's any actual impact here on the story elements that are going
Yeah.
on, or whether it's recording what's necessarily
Yeah.
transpiring in the story. Because at the
I don't
moment,
think it
again,
can be.
it's this confusion between what's a story engine and what's a game engine.
Grandma
Yeah.
shouted, "Who is there?" Wolf replied, "Look, red cap, delicious cake and wine." Grandma asked for the secret
So we've
password.
got to find some sort of secret.
Oh,
Enter
again, I
this
know where the
house.
I
Enter
know what the
this
answer is.
house. Well, if you put the mouse
the
cursor over the word house,
No,
Yeah. The doorknob, clearly. It was...
input the password. Enter this house. So type in this house. You see, it's the cryptic thing again.
Okay, what's the answer, Ricky?
it's password. Password's always password, Charlie.
So that's input the password. So I'd have expected to be either this house or the password to
Yeah.
follow on. So all right. Yeah. So I kind of I can see what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
I think again, the having lots of different puzzle games probably isn't a good idea when you've got such a limited time as well. It would have been better, I think, to have a kind of
Sure, so there's a lot of puzzle games here. But also the other thing as well, bearing in mind, just going back to other things here, there's no real sense of character. There's no sense of what's going on with regards to pacing. The pacing is pretty flat throughout. Okay, it's the same sort of pace as it was at the beginning.
yes.
And the constant shifting between mini games is a bit, it does break some continuity.
Again, a bit like the last ones. I think they'd have been better to go something simple. They'd have been
Yes.
better to build up a basic mechanic, and then mix things up and have a sequence of that single game.
This is the
Taking
thing.
the story
The series
forward.
of mini games, fine, I could accept.
Yeah.
Can accept that. However, why not make the mini games about actual sort of real parts of the story? Make
Yeah.
it feel like parts of the story rather than these sorts of.
Well, in fairness, what a big mouth you have.
Yeah, but I don't think that's the point of that scene. I don't think that scene was about in Little Red Riding Hood was about identification of body parts. It was about slow and dawning realization. Okay, that's not necessarily what they've communicated.
Yeah.
So
the whole trickery mechanic of saying one thing and it being the opposite or something else.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's it. Maybe maybe I'm being unfair here then, because the notion of the
Yeah,
game
that's what
tricking you
we're
and
for.
cheating you. Okay, maybe Little Red Riding Hood is in a sense a story about deception, and they're using that. Maybe it's they've leveraged
So,
that.
so you're suggesting they're picking up that theme of kind of
Mm-hmm.
sort of saying one thing, meaning another, not being
Sure.
quite what you thought.
But again, to summarise, let's return to what we're actually assessing in this coursework. Okay, we're assessing the ability to construct a story engine. There is a progression in the sense that the story moves forward,
Yeah.
but I can't see any impact of actual story
There's
elements.
no
actually
link
progressing
between
things
the
going
different
on.
puzzles. There's no consequence for your choices again, is there?
Precisely.
Yeah.
Managing agency, irrelevant because it's a linear story. There is no agency really. Okay, you just continue on in what you're doing.
Yeah, and even within that, there's no agency. So
Precisely.
again, it's about meaningful choice. There's no meaningful choice here.
Use of story writing techniques. The pacing graph is pretty much flat throughout.
Yes.
There's no particular characterization being used here. There's no. There is, in a sense, a sort of multi-act structure going on here, but I'm not seeing the use of the multi-act structure being necessarily taken advantage of. There is no sort of posing of a dramatic question followed by an acquisition of means followed by a climax. It's just a continuous series of events.
And in terms of the narrative and the gameplay and the way they're linked, it's clearly themed on Red Riding Hood.
Indeed, the aesthetics.
But beyond that sort of superficial look.
Yeah.
And the kind of use of the key story elements, there isn't really anything. They haven't picked up, I don't think, on anything in the kind of story and used it to drive a mechanic. The mechanics don't help tell the story at all.
No. Agreed.
So I think they could have done. Again, I think in a way they've been too ambitious. In this case, it's not that they've done. They've gone to extremes with the graphics or anything. It's that they've tried to do too many things.
Sure.
And actually, simplicity would have probably let them to tell a more sophisticated story.
Yeah,
Sure.
or even just part of the story. Pick one part of the story and do a really good mini game around that, and bookend it with bits
I think so.
of the story.
Oh, okay. Shall we move on?
Yeah.
Good.
This is LHR.
Indeed.
Anything you want to tell us up front, Charlie, or should we just dive
So,
in?
yeah, just get straight on with it. I mean, the sense of this, okay, is that
Angry Birds?
no, it's not Angry Birds. Okay, it's a Little Red Riding Hood game that is effectively a platformer. Okay, slightly reimagined with slightly different individuals and characters. Okay.
So you're not moving that, are you?
No, that's just
scrolling.
that's
This is an opening cutscene. Okay.
Good. Okay.
I have a lot of agency here.
Mm-hmm. No, indeed.
What have you got in your pockets?
Opening cutscene.
Cake and wine.
So
there's quite a lot of dialogue.
There is quite a lot of dialogue, and it's not interactive, but I do think it is sort of helping to sort of set the tone of the event. Right, it is sort of they're making use of it, but they could have done it better. But yeah.
Okay.
So now it's
Nice.
multiplayer. Okay.
Oh,
so
how?
I think one person's on
Come on,
Wednesday.
Dave.
And you have a race between essentially the wolf and Red Riding Hood, but the dragon and
so I'm Red Riding Hood at the top.
yeah,
there.
indeed, and Ricky's controlling the dragon. So what's going on here is that they've turned this race into an actual mechanic. Okay, if you die, you
that was
so.
good. Oh no!
This is where the story engine comes into play because if you die, you do actually die. Okay, so if you run out of points, then it will record the death of that character, and the ending will reflect that.
So,
okay, and if one character beats one, so the dragon died on the route.
so I have to say, as a way of what they're doing, some of the things that we were saying, some of the others should have been doing is they've taken a particular aspect of the
game
story
and turned it into a mechanic,
and they've turned it into a mechanic, and actually that's really nice.
Yeah.
And this implementation. Is actually quite cute. It's quite a nice little race platform.
I like race platforms.
From the point of view of actually a story engine as well, that it does actually take effect. It records who got hurt while they were in the race, who died while they were in the race, who won and who lost.
Here we go.
Okay.
Who was there? Kaparuki, something like that.
Why is the name?
He's bringing cake and wine. Absolutely. Always let people in if they bring cake and wine. That's my policy. I'm 2 weeks ahead of... Brilliant.
Grandpa.
Yeah.
You're such a lovely boy.
Okay, and that ending would have been different if
Yeah.
Little Red Riding Hood had won still, but the
Yeah.
dragon hadn't died. So there's
Yeah.
another ending if the dragon loses
this
but
is
dies.
quite nice.
okay?
So
Did they
they
do permute all the different...
all the permutations.
Oh,
of
nice.
them, yeah.
So
sure.
you've got a nice little setup at the beginning.
Mhm.
They've got a really nice integration with the platformer.
Mhm.
The story engine is clearly there in both the kind of the way in which the level's integrated, but in the way it's remembering the outcome.
Mhm.
I think the mechanic is nicely picking up on something from the
Yes.
from the
Yeah.
story itself.
I
It's
also-
actually a really nice example.
It's nice. I mean, there are a few things we could critique about this. I think they're failing to take advantage of the initial pacing injection, right? The fact that it's supposed to be a little bit more dramatic at the start to grab
Yeah.
people. It's a slow start that builds a drama to a conclusion. So it's a sort of low res, the early sort of pacing graph thing, which is fine. That's still something, okay? There is that sort of build a drama, and obviously the notion of a race helps to build drama as
Yes.
well. I also think they've made good use of the sort of the 3-act structure in a sense.
Absolutely.
It's a different variation of the 3-act structure. Remember, the 3-act structure does include the acquisition of means, which we've talked about with some of the
Yes,
other games,
yeah.
okay? But it also includes this notion of the trials, okay? The idea of the sort of a succession of overcoming small problems, okay? And that's exactly what the race is: hopping small gaps and taking small enemies. So it's they're making use of that.
There is a slight
as well.
inconsistency, which is that I don't believe that Little Red Riding Hood is aware that he's having a race. Right?
Yes,
There's a slightly odd thing going on there.
Yeah, for sure.
You mean in the original story?
And in this. So in the original story, it's kind of
Little Red Riding Hood
so-
just getting there.
yes, yeah. So it almost feels like maybe you've almost like have two different challenges. Like the wolf is racing, and Little Red Riding Hood is trying to negotiate a maze or something like that.
Sure.
Or collect all the things.
Or collect all
something
the
like
things,
that.
or
Yeah.
had some different. But I think in terms of simplicity and of unifying the mechanic, and it probably would have just been easier just to make it a race,
Yeah.
just to introduce a slight twist to the story.
Sure.
But I think it looks really clean and neat, and
Yeah,
it
it's
kind of
nice.
works well.
So another
the
thing to touch
controls
on
were good.
Another thing that the designers are keen to point out to me as well is that they sort of themed the races as well. So
Right.
Little Red Riding Hood's race is very much more colourful and bright. And
Yeah,
sort of,
yeah.
very much the
Dragons
nice
are grey.
route. Whereas the Dragon's one is the dark secretive route. Okay, where it's
Yes.
sort of sneaking around. So they've
Yeah.
sort of washed out the colour. They've made it
Yeah.
appear more.
Yeah.
I
I mean, I think they could
which
have
is all aesthetics, right? That's
but
not
they could
necessarily.
have, but they could have gone a bit further with that.
Yeah.
So they could have had, like we're looking at now. We've got kind of the bright grass, the bright sky, colourful stuff. They could have gone with the dragon taking a kind of underground route,
Yeah,
or kind of going
something
through
like that.
caverns and
Or
darkness,
doing something else.
or the
I
deep
think that's
dark woods. or
Probably
something
what
like
they
that.
went for, but
But
they
didn't
didn't have
quite
the
come
art
across.
to.
Yeah,
mark
they've
those.
made good
Yeah.
use of the art they
Yeah,
had, right?
absolutely.
So
I
I-
think here that in summary, okay, I think that their systematic storytelling, so the use of the story engine
Yes.
and the use of mechanics as part of the story has been excellent. Okay, there's a
Yeah,
good sort of
good.
permutation of the story there, and they've also making that sort of competitive race being a part of the actual game is a great way of telling the story of Little
Yeah.
Red Riding Hood through mechanics.
Yeah.
I think on the other side of the coin, with techniques and things, there are a few weaknesses there. The pacing has been considered, but maybe isn't as spot on as it could be.
Yeah.
And that long cutscene at the beginning is maybe a little bit
Yes,
uninteractive
yeah.
and a little bit sort of dragging on. But I think that's sort of picking holes to some extent.
Yeah,
Right?
I
It's still
think
really,
for what they're able to produce in a very short amount of time,
mhm.
I think it's a really good effort. Yeah, nice,
Yeah, absolutely.
nice games.
The dragon is a good example of a mechanical antagonist.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
In that he feels good to beat. Okay. He is clearly a monster and unidentifiable. Okay. They ticked a lot of boxes. Okay. They're good.
Definitely,
Yeah.
they've looked at the spec and realised what they need to
Yeah.
do to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well
to
done,
do
guys.
this and do
Yeah.
this well. Very
Good.
good.
Good job.
Cool. All right, let's move on to the next one.
Okay, this game is Drake. Dave saw this one. He doesn't.
Yeah.
remember
So I had a look at this one. So again, it's a platformer. Off you go.
Okay. So we've got a little dragon, and he's
Yeah.
wandering on.
You cannot go past here, my little Drake. Our princess is resting in the garden. But I am so hungry. There is a forest full of golds. If you can have enough money, I'm sure the princess will sell you some food.
Great. Let's go get some gold.
Finding golds would be so good.
Can
Can I eat the princess? No way! How dare you? I have dozens of knights behind me. It's a little bit surreal, this game, if I'm honest, but go with it.
Which one is this about? Is this?
Should I fight with those annoying knights?
Is this Billy Goat's Gruff?
All right, so you've got a narrative choice.
So you've got a yes or no.
Mouse?
Should you fight the knights? Up to you.
Yeah, totally.
So now you have a...
Lord.
So basically, the structure of this is that you have kind of two...
No.
You have two mini games, and depending on the choices you make, will activate the different mini games. So if you go yes, you effectively go and have to fight the knights, and you can shoot the knights, and once you've killed them, there's an exit gate. And if you go no, you get a different mini game. So
okay. So which fairy tale is this one based on?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I think they're what I understand the sort. Yeah. Okay.
So here we got to the end.
Yeah.
I'm grateful to meet you, my princess. Can I help you? I am so hungry. Can I get some food from you? So do you want to buy some food? You can, of course, eat the princess as well.
Oh yeah, let's eat the princess.
I think you have to actually... Oh, you can sell her food. There you go. So I think... So
okay,
there are some nice things.
Yeah.
So I think that... I think the idea of
money
having
goes into negative, so that's...
Yeah, there are also some bugs. So there are some nice things here in that you do have a choice. The choice will give you a different mini game.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you come to this, and then depending on what happens in that mini game, you pick up money or you defeat the knights. You come to here. It does have some consequences. So in that case, you do have this kind of split join structure, single split join structure.
Okay.
It doesn't help that it's a really surreal game. I mean, I have absolutely no idea why there's a giant robot defending the princess. And what's going on?
Why there's a dragon?
So making kind of narrative sense of it is quite difficult.
Indeed.
And also it really doesn't hit the spec. I mean, I not have a clue which fairy tale it relates to.
Let's be careful as well. Although we agree it doesn't necessarily hit the spec, let's have to think about what's actually going here. Story engine wise, okay, they have obviously made some notion of being able to record events.
Go through it, make some other choices.
And they have made a way of recording what is being done and then making the actions of the game reflect that.
Although I'm not actually sure that they've linked together those actions particularly well. So you're supposed to go and collect the gold to give to the princess. I'm not actually sure that it matters how much gold you collect.
Well, it does. We know because at the end, even with no gold, we were still able to buy the apples. So that's.
So if you say no,
so
now you've got a different mini game. Look,
this conversation is also a bit sort of clunky. It's not very. It's got like a little bit of interaction, but it's small text at the top that makes it sort of difficult to do.
That's like presentation of text has been a little bit of a problem with all the games we've seen so far. I think you need to be really careful with that.
There is a 3-act structure. We should bear that in mind. Okay, there's a dramatic question that's posed. You acquire the means, and then you resolve the dramatic question.
Yes.
Okay, so there is something to be noted there. Okay, I'm not sure there's much in the way of characterization. Though the dragon is not really any form of protagonist.
I mean, it really is very random. I mean, that's
it's the thing.
Big rock robot man had a bit of character.
Did he?
Yeah, but
so what is he? Is he an antagonist or a protagonist?
It depends if you try and eat the princess.
Yeah.
So this is
He's
the
an
thing.
antagonist, isn't he? He was blocking our path, wasn't he?
So what sort of antagonist was he?
I can't remember all the types, Charlie. You tell me the types.
Okay, so he's not a mechanical antagonist because he doesn't do anything.
Not really.
He's not a narratological antagonist because he's not richly involved in the story in a meaningful way.
No.
He's not a force of nature. And I don't think he's a monster either. So yeah.
Should I buy some food? Go, no. Try shooter. There you go. Now you've got some food. We'll eat the princess.
Smoked ham.
So I mean, there's. It's a difficult one. I think for me, one of the. I mean, we really can't get around the fact we asked them to produce something that was about one of these 3 fairy tales.
Yeah.
And what we have is about a kind of a baby dragon that wants to eat a princess that's looked after by a giant robot. Yeah. Right? And I think we've got to incorporate that. You know, you do have to work to a spec. So I think that's a problem here.
Pacing wise, does it have pacing?
It
does, but
it does.
it does, but
It varies through
so
the
it definitely increases in the middle when you have the mechanical thing.
Yeah.
But I don't think this is a dramatic conclusion. The fact that you have the way it works at the end,
it's really
it just
low
feels very arbitrary.
Yeah,
It's just like,
yeah.
oh,
It's
okay,
very low at the
I'll
end.
buy an apple or I'll burn
So
the
it kind of
princess,
builds up. It
but
builds up
I don't
quite
really
nicely.
care.
Doesn't it? You've got that bit at the beginning with the dialogue, and then you got the action. That works.
They sort of start to build up, and then
But then it just kind of dies again.
yeah.
So
Okay.
so I think they were kind of obviously and they did really think about having those kind of split joins and having these different different
yeah,
kind of
indeed. So
levels.
there is definitely some story engine there.
Yeah.
But so in summary, failed to meet the specification, which is a bit of a problem.
Yes.
Okay. Some story engine, but quite a mild one. Okay.
Yeah.
Some use of a 3-act structure. Okay.
Yeah.
But incongruous storytelling, no use of characterization,
Yeah.
no obvious use of other narrative.
They needed more of a climax, didn't they?
Um,
And also they needed a bit more sophistication in that the mechanics, or even just what you achieved, really needed to affect the outcome of what was going on.
Sure,
to a certain
the
extent.
agency.
And even to change your options.
This is
The
the thing,
fact that you've got exactly the same options no matter which way you came or
they
how well
haven't
you
really
did
managed agency
is a problem. Yeah.
Okay, let's move on.
That was the end of that batch.
That's the end of the batch. So great. So thank you to all the people who've put all that hard work into doing those games. It was really fun to explore them, and we're looking forward to having a look at the next lot.
Okay.
See you after
Good.
the break.